As Naomi mentioned, as Mickey, as Shaylee mentioned, like we are here to support you, the agent. Rainbow only sells through independent agents, right? And we're all here because of you all, right? So we're really excited to do this webinar. We look forward to it every single week. We have a tendency to be a little silly. Hopefully you don't mind us. But regardless, we hopefully give you lots of good information to come and partner with us and have a successful relationship because we love working with you all. There's a reason that we do what we do. We have a passion for agents and what it is that you bring to the insureds, what you bring to the marketplace, and how critical your role is to making sure that all the small businesses and restaurants that are not just small are covered, right? Because we can do any number of folks, right? And we'll kind of get into that here as we start with the presentation. So I am going to be talking us through that today, and I'm going to share screen here with you. I think that you all can probably see chats. It looks like we've gotten some folks who have chatted in. Please do not hesitate, right? As this is a webinar, that means that you're not going to be able to come off mute and talk. However, we interact with you through chats the entire time, right? So post your questions. The team will interrupt me and I can highlight something if need be, or they'll just answer you right there in the chat and you'll get a response right away. But yeah, I will go ahead and start sharing now. Ask those questions though. We love to hear them. All right. Cool. I think I'm good. Okay, perfect. So what you're looking at right now is our demo environment. It allows me as an employee here at Rainbow to show you what it looks like. It's almost exactly going to be identical to what it's like when you log in as an agent, but there's a thing or two here or there. I'll make sure to point it out to you. That said, you're going to be greeted with your policy screens as soon as you log in. And in no time flat, you're going to have all kinds of great policies showing up here for you as well. You can see that at a glance, we've got a number of different features that we can show you here on the main policy screen. You can see what the business is, whether or not a payment is overdue, whether or not everything is a good standing, upcoming renewals. This is one of those ways in which the demo environment looks kind of goofy. This will normally just not have a negative on there. We're not renewing fake policies. So this is showing that the renewal should have been 4 days ago. It's a different system. You won't see that. Normally it'll say renews in 4 days. If you want to check out and do some deeper info on the policy and do some self-service on it, you click this little green arrow here. That can trip folks up every once in a while because you can't really click in this box. You got to come over here and grab this arrow. Right. So once you do, you're greeted with some other stuff about the policy. You can come in here and you can get the policy documents. You can download the policy itself. You can grab the quote letter in case there was some part of that you missed that you want to have on file and record for your agency. You can file a claim here. Presently, we are linking out to North American Risk Services, and we are going to be switching our third-party claims here very soon to work with Reserve. Now, we've had a fantastic relationship with NARS. It's not due to any reason for that at all. We write through Accelerant, and that's actually a good segue. It's something I should have mentioned a moment ago. We write through Accelerant, and they are growing with Reserve. So they are moving some of their program partners over to Reserve. Everything's been great with NARS so far. If you've got anything going on with them, don't worry, they will continue to handle it. But for now, they'll be passing anything over to Reserve here very shortly. But in the meantime, you can come into this and click on File a Claim with any of these, with what exists out there presently. And that will be handled by Reserve in the days to come. We've had lots of really great feedback and reviews coming over to us from Accelerant and all the programs that they're mentioning. So we're really excited to have them working with Rainbow as well. All right, so that's that. If you need to see all of the contact information for them as well, you and your insured will get that on the first page of your policy. Now, this is going to be kind of tiny, so I apologize, but you'll be able to see how to report a claim, and you'll have all of that individual information about like how to reach out to the respective third-party claims adjuster here on the very first page of your policy as well. All right, so then the last thing that I like to show folks from this screen is this payment schedule. You and the insured will both be able to have access to a Rainbow account. Obviously, they will have far fewer features than you will. They'll be able to get their policy document, but they'll also be able to see their payment schedule, right? So they can see that, the charge date, all of our policies are on auto pay, so the charge date will be consistent month to month if it's on monthly. We do also offer annual policies. But if they're behind in payments, they can hop in and click pay now and add a card on file, get it all updated. If the account is in ACH mode instead of credit card, they'll be able to put that ACH in instead. and charge that payment so that everything can stay active and up to date. You have access to do that from within your login as well. If you ever have any questions about that, if you ever need any assistance with any of the billing stuff, you're going to hear me say this many times throughout the presentation. It is us and our team that are here helping you on chats. As a matter of fact, you may see Mickey and Shaylee typing away at things right now. It's because they're actively helping agents through chats, through endorsements, through all kinds of things that we can support you with, right? So do not hesitate to reach out with that chat if you ever have any questions about using any of these features or anything else. And then the last thing to show you from this page is the request and endorsement, right? So it's a pretty simple form. You just come in and fill out exactly what it is that you're requesting an endorsement for. You have an opportunity to upload files if, for instance, you need to show a contract a sale, or if the business is closing and you need to upload a cancellation request, those kind of things. If you're tagging that it's an additional insured, you'd want to come over here to the description and make sure that you're adding the name of the additional insured, their address if it needs to be put on the form, that kind of thing. But it's all pretty straightforward, and it comes immediately and directly to our team. We do our best to have that back to you same day if at all possible, or at least have some sort of correspondence to you same day. But we do ask that you give us 3 to 5 days just in case we get a little bit backed up if some of the team is out of the office or something along those lines. But we do our best to get back to you very quickly with those. All right, so that's your policy screen. We're going to skip quotes for now. Settings is straightforward. Change your email, change your password. Resources is something that we love to take a moment to highlight. And now that the wonderful and magnificent Morgan is present on our webinar as well, this is a great opportunity to shout them out. Morgan is our marketing manager. They have the most seniority of every single person on this call. They've been at Rainbow since forever, just basically forever, and have helped partner up with underwriting to make sure that your agency, and even some stuff for your insured is well taken care of here. All kinds of resources, right? They've also worked to get form specimens up on our website for you to be able to access to. This should cover just about everything that you'd want to see from us. However, if something's missing, just reach out to us again through that chat, and we'll be happy to help you out and get you that form that you'd like to see. That said, you should definitely take time to go through this because they've worked very hard to get you some really great resources on here. But I like to highlight a couple of things in particular, right? So we'll talk about this NFPA cheat sheet here in a little bit. I'm going to leave that open so we can discuss it. Just know that that's here, and I'll reference it when we come back to it as part of the quote. However, the other thing that I like to show is this Rainbow Appetite Guide. This is something that we are regularly updating. As a matter of fact, we got a new version of it coming out here very soon. We're looking over it on a regular basis. You can see, don't strain your eyes, it's really tiny print. But you can see that we go through a ton of stuff here, right? So everything that it is that you could need to know about writing with Rainbow hopefully is included in this document. That said, all the different ways that we classify our restaurants, what's included in that, what's not included, the description for it. What if there's hookah bars at the restaurant as well, or pool halls, right? Like, we try to answer some of those commonly asked questions here as part of the appetite guide as well. But as I said, you're going to hear me say it 1,000 billion times. Just chat into us. We love talking to you. We'll answer all those questions as well. But definitely take a moment to look over that appetite guide. Lots of really good information in there. All right. And so then we will show you quotes here. But actually, before I do that, I want to show you how to start a new quote, right? So there's a couple things, and I'll explain the reason why I'm going to do that first here in just a moment. But there's a couple things to show you under the start a new quote. When you get started, you're going to be prompted, do you want to do this for 1 location, 2 to 5, or 6 or more? Really, there's just 2 main options here, even though it looks like 3, right? Our online quoting platform is single location only. You're going to get prompted for a question about whether or not it's multi-location as you go through that quote flow, and I'll show you that, and I'll explain why you get that question in a moment. But know that anything that you quote online here is going to be single location only. So if you select that 2 to 5 locations, basically what it is that we're doing for you is we're helping copy over some of the initial information that you put in, and we're just getting an additional quote started so you don't have to repeat that. They will still all be separate policies. Now, I say that with a caveat. We're working on a means of allowing you to do multi-location in the online quoting process. That's ideal for us. It's ideal for you. So hopefully that is coming in the days not too distant. We are actively working on it. In the meantime, we love large restaurants, large groups of restaurants, just as much as we love the single locations. So if you have more than 5, we don't want you to have to sit down and type each one of those in for each separate policy. So you can select the 6 or more. We give you some explanation about what it is that you're signing up for, but you start this manual submission, and then we have a whole walkthrough on exactly what it is that we need so that you can write those 25 locations, those 100 locations, 150. Rainbow can consider those, right? We want to still have an opportunity for you to write those with us because we believe we have a really fantastic market that your insureds are going to want to work with us for, right? So we'll go through all the instructions as you go through this. Reach out with us if you have any questions, but it is an offline process that you just start here and fill out. All right, but most of the rest of them are going to be 1 or 2 to 5. If you select that 2 to 5, like I said, it basically just starts several quotes for you, copying over basic information like the contact info for the insured. All right, but we're going to go back to quotes because I'm going to show you one that's already pre-filled. That way you don't have to sit here and watch me type. All right, that said, there's a number of statuses that you're going to see here on the quote screen, right? I've obviously I created a test here where I ran some different locations. I wanted to see whether or not we would have any coastal restrictions on them. So I just kind of ran through with a 3 location thing, and it creates all of these separate locations using that early entry info of the business name. Obviously, it allowed me to do separate addresses, right? So it just kind of makes it a little bit cleaner and easier of a process if you're doing several singles here within our platform. If for some reason this needs to be referred, you will get this note of action required refer now. That's not going to be what you're going to see most of the time. Most of the time, you're going to see bindable and that it's open and ready to go, right? And even once you've gotten some of this action required refer now, you send it over to Adrian and his team, and they'll send it right back to you, approving every single risk you ever send them. And yeah, it's good. I'm glad we recognize that's a joke. Thank you. If we do approve it, which we do pretty commonly, that's one of the reasons why we've had so much success is that we have a very understanding and interested in writing business underwriting team. So they do a really good job of making sure that they really dive into your quotes, and then they'll turn around, they'll send you an email, and they'll say, hey, this looks great. Thanks for referring, giving us a chance to look it over, and it'll show up as bindable then within your dashboard. Right. So the other thing to point out, draft just means that it's incomplete on your end. Expired. Our quotes are good for 60 days. If it's a day or two afterward, just reach out through chat and we can help unlock that for you. If you're going to be a few weeks, it's probably better if you just create a new quote. As you'll see, it only takes a few minutes to go through this. And you're going to get the most updated rates, coverages, that kind of thing, right? So then with these action required refer now, there is an important step to point out to you. You're going to get all kinds of information. You saw what was there on that first screen. We're saying click refer now to request a manual review, refer now, click refer now. We put this everywhere because we want you to know that we're not going to look at this until you click that button. We realize that you may have just been testing it out to see what sort of premium it is that we might charge. You might have some questions about that you need to go back and address with the insured and make sure it's fully accurate. So until you're ready to send that to us, we don't just automatically send it. We wait for you to click that button. So make sure you're paying attention on that dashboard. If it says that there's an action required on your end, we're probably not looking at it unless you've sent that over to us. But once you click the button, it'll say referred now. You'll hear from us oftentimes same day. Same story with the endorsements. Adrian and his team work very hard to make sure that we are turning those around to you as quickly as we can. We ask that you give us a day or two, typically, but most of the time we're doing it same day for you. All right, so let's hop into one that is bindable so I can kind of go through it step by step. And again, I'll take this moment to remind you all, please ask any questions. Please interrupt. I imagine that the rest of the team here is answering them in chats as I go, but please don't hesitate. We love your questions. All right, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about those classes because you can see all of them in that appetite guide. And like I said, you can kind of go through the breakdown of what we consider what. That being said, there are 3 here that we do not write. We do not write mobile food vendors because we do not have an auto product. So we just don't have the coverages that it is that they would need. Now, if they're placed somewhere else, if they're permanently stationary, sometimes we can still potentially consider like the brick and mortar, that kind of thing, if you've got the food truck placed somewhere else. But just know as a general rule, mobile food vendors are out for us. Same as warehouse or incidental office, right? We want to be writing the restaurant itself. We don't want to be writing somebody who's, storing the food for it to be sold somewhere else. We don't want to be with somebody who's part of the manufacturing chain. We want to work with restaurants. And you'll see we have a pretty broad appetite for those that do actually sell food. And then the last one to point out is bars and taverns, right? And the reason that I save that for last is because there's a big caveat with that, right? The way that we look at bars and taverns is not typical in the market. Just because it's called Jason's Bar and Grill does not mean it's an automatic kick out for us. And I'll show you here in a moment how it is that we really kind of dive in deep to make sure that we're considering whether or not it's a restaurant versus a bar. And probably the most important thing to tell you as part of that is that we can consider up to 65% in alcohol sales. We know that some restaurants just have expensive alcohol, right? And we still want to consider that risk, right? So I'll show you how it is that we really kind of define whether it's a bar versus an actual restaurant.
Hey,
All right, and I
Jason,
mentioned, yeah, what's up?
we have two questions about our appetite.
Awesome.
Do we write caterers? And how about Korean barbecue restaurants?
Yeah. Both fantastic questions. Adrian, do you want to answer them? Do you want me to take them?
Sure. I mean, any of us can answer this. This is pretty
Yes.
easy for us. We love caterers. We love Korean barbecue restaurants. We can write 100% caterers. We can write restaurants that do catering. We could do any amount of catering whatsoever. In Korean barbecue as well, we love it. Happy to see it. Might have some questions on their risk management, but quite honestly, we love them. We write a ton of them.
Yeah. See, this is what I'm talking about, y'all. How often do you get to work with underwriters who are going to tell you that? Just like blanket right out the gate. I love partnering with Adrian and his team. Okay. So, great questions. Keep them coming. And we will address both of those here as we go through the quote flow too. So you might hear it again. All right, multiple locations. This is what I was talking about. The reason that we ask this question, in addition to what we ask when we start, is that we realize that you may be going through and doing single location policies on multiple location entities, right? If that's the case, please make sure that you're selecting yes and read this. We are adding an designated premises endorsement to these policies. And the reason for that is that each location is going to have its own limits at it, its own coverages. So we want to make sure that they're not all stacking. There's no blurred lines in any of that. Each policy is meant for those individual locations. That's what that question is in regards to. Any claims in the last 3 years? Not necessarily a problem. We just want to make sure that it's not a problem, right? So 50,000 is our general appetite. We can consider some stuff for some exception basis. You're just going to reach out to Adrian and his team to kind of chat on that. So I won't dive into it too deep. Just know that our general rules over the last 3 years, we want to see risks that have 50,000 or less in losses. Is the business or any of its owners, officers, criminals? You don't need to hear me talk about that. All right. Do they have stairs? I just take a quick moment to point out that we have a very dynamic system. If you don't need to see, if they don't have stairs, you don't need to see all this about stairs. And you'll see how this kind of comes across in our system as we go through some more questions. But I always like to point this out that we try to hide the information from you that you just don't need to see because it's not relevant, right? So if they have stairs, it's not a problem. We just want to make sure that they're following good safety guidelines. This is how we determine whether or not it's a bar. Do they have a happy hour between 8 p.m. and close? Alcoholic drink specials under $4. Door bouncers, live concerts with three or more performers. Some of you who may pick up on this very quickly realize that like three or more performers, we can still do karaoke. We can still do, that person who has a guitar on the weekends or a piano player in a nice fancy restaurant. Like we have all kinds of stuff. You're smiling at me. Is that a thing? Maybe that's not a thing. I've never been to a fancy restaurant. Now I feel outed. All right. So anyway, yeah, they got piano players that I feel like I've seen it on TV. That's got to count for something. Yeah. All right. But you all get the idea, right? Like we really do try to consider whether or not this is a restaurant versus a bar, right? And so if that happens, that you're like, this is definitely a restaurant, even though they have drink specials that are under $4. It's a super rural area. All the drinks are under $4, no matter where you go, right? Like reach out to us and tell us that. We're going to want you to still check the box, right? But we're going to want to hear those stories, and Adrian and his team can still consider taking a look at some of those, right? Another one that we frequently get is serves liquor between midnight and 5 a.m. Really, we can write 24-hour establishments. We just want to make sure that the kitchen is open between midnight and 5 a.m., but not selling alcohol, right? The bar is not open, right? So as long as they cut off service at that time and don't open it back up until after 5 a.m., then we're potentially still a home for them. We'd love to take a look at your 24-hour one. All right, so playground on the premises, same as the stairs. You might be surprised to hear that we can still consider it. There's, a few more guidelines than just stairs, but definitely take a look at that. This is going to be how we find out some of that additional information that we might not see otherwise. So like I mentioned earlier, if they've got a food truck, but that's placed somewhere else, We can still be a home for the brick and mortar. You're going to want to make sure that you're designated that they own and operate a food truck. And then, you'll have a chat with the underwriting team about exactly how that's all positioned. Another one to point out here is sublease the insured location as a ghost kitchen anytime. We can do ghost kitchens, we can do commissaries, right? So we're just looking for a little bit more information about that, but know that we are a potential home for those as well. Yeah, alarms, security cameras, all this stuff is pretty straightforward, so I'm going to skip over it. Any other any of the following types of cooking performed? This is where I wanted to hold on to this sheet for you so I could point it out. We follow the NFPA guidelines just like all of your restaurants do. National Fire Protection Association, right? So if they're doing solid fuel cooking, the expectation is that that includes, wood, charcoal, coal, wood, pellets, etc., and that they are cleaning their hoods, vents, and various other systems monthly, right? So that directly correlates to this question that it is that we're asking here. If you select that they're doing solid fuel, we want to make sure that they're cleaning at least monthly, right? We provide you this cheat sheet not because this is something that comes up very often. As a matter of fact, we almost never hear anything about it, because your restaurants are probably going to be following it, right? But we work in the insurance industry, and some of you may be specialists in restaurants, but I'll tell you, I used to work in a restaurant as a server, as a cook, and I wouldn't have known these things. So I wouldn't expect that all insurance agents are necessarily going to know them either. And this is another place where Morgan and the underwriting team have done a great job of making sure that you have the resources so that you can show up to those meetings, talk to those insureds, and have the knowledge that they have and truly be the professional for them, right? So this tends to not be an issue, this correlation between frequency of cleaning and types of cooking, but we've got that resource up there for you so you can be just as up to speed on what the NFPA requires as well. This is usually where I give the caveat of that question that we got asked earlier. We love restaurants. We love all kinds of restaurants. We can do Korean barbecue. We can do hot pot. We can do tableside cooking as long as they're not like actively setting things on fire just as tricks, right? We can do all kinds of stuff. Buffets. I get asked about that from time to time. We may not love buffets, right? But we can still write them. We can consider them, right? So just keep that in mind when you're thinking about your restaurants and placing them with Rainbow. We have a very broad appetite for types of restaurants.
Jason,
All right.
we have a couple questions.
Yeah.
One from Alex, one from Steven. So Adrian just answered it, but Alex had asked about does a step or two near the entrance count as stairs? And then Adrian, if you want to go ahead and answer that one.
Yeah, so it's a great question. What is sort of the definition of stairs? Obviously, you kind of know stairs when you see them. A step or two, like one single step, at the front entrance may not count if it's going from like the sidewalk into the building, so on and so forth. But if there's multiple steps, we would like to see sort of those similar safeguards, putting down non-slip flooring, putting possibly something to grab onto, highlighting them in some way. Basically just to prevent slip and fall. It's an important thing. Stairs are often that way that things can happen. But that's kind of where it's at. Like, if it's I would say single step, it's not stairs, but if you're got multiple, that would be stairs.
Thank you. And then Stephen, the questionnaire was asking what is the max building age allowable?
We'll also get to that a little bit later, so I was gonna let that
Okay.
come
And
up.
then I have Jennifer, or I'm sorry, Tom. I answered Tom, but Tom was asking about our umbrella. I sent the link in there that you guys can check out as well. And then Ms. Jennifer asked, I assume you can't blanket property coverage between locations.
It cannot, regardless of whether it's the single location policy or it's a large multi-location policy, the property coverages do need to be assigned to a specific location. We cannot do blanket property right now. And Tom, just also to be clear, we can do 3 million within our own authority, and we can go up to limits of 4 or 5 million, but that does require approval by our partners. Alan now asking about frame buildings with commercial cooking. Yes, there may be a referral due to TIV, depending on how high the TIV is. But yes, we do write frame buildings with commercial cooking all the time.
Great questions. All right, Jason.
All are coming fast with these.
Mhm.
Yeah. You know what? You know what it makes me think is that one of these days we need to do like an AMA with some underwriters and just like let y'all have it.
I don't know if you want to do it with some underwriters because I feel like the joke is if you get three underwriters in a room you and ask one question, you'll get three different answers, which isn't necessary, which isn't true with us. We are actually pretty much all aligned. But do you really want to watch us have the live discussion before
Kind of
we get to
do.
that one answer?
That does sound kind of fun for me.
That sounds fun.
You might not want that. I kind of do. All right, cool. These are fantastic questions, just like Nikki said. Keep them coming, y'all. Adrian is a wealth of knowledge, as you can tell. So please don't hesitate. All right, carrying on though. Remodeling or renovation, we can still consider it. You're going to want to click yes and make sure that you're reading through all this stuff. Just to briefly touch on it, generally, we're just looking for some light renovation, basically. Do they need a policy a week before they open and they're making some changes to the location? Like, that's typically what it is that you see in this space anyway. And we're still a great home for that kind of thing. So definitely, if that's the case, just know that it's possible that we could work with them still. Read over all those guidelines, chat in if you got any questions. Cash only is a decline. We just want to make sure they have a point of sale system is really what that comes down to, and that they're tracking all their sales. Number of employees, etc. Everything's good here. What year did the establishment open? We can write new ventures, and you're not even going to see a question about it as long as it's not brand new. But if it is, you'll get another pop-up question that says, does management have at least 3 years experience? If that's the case, then we're happy to write it. If it's not a brand new venture, then you don't even get the question. So yeah, new ventures, still happy to consider those here at Rainbow. All right, ownership structure, maximum occupancy. This is all pretty straightforward. Liability coverage, we can do up to 10 mil in annual sales per location, right? Obviously, our restaurants are based off, I guess maybe it's not obvious. I wonder if anybody in the market does still do square footage for restaurants. Regardless, our policies are based off of sales. We can do up to 10 mil per location. We typically offer, the options of 500 or 1 mil in GL or 1-2 limits, which obviously almost everybody's going to select 1-2, but there is that lower option. Most of the time, you're not going to see 2-4. The only time that that's the case is, here we go, in California, right? So we offer our BOP in all of these green states, and we offer our excess in almost all of those green states. The big one, oh, look, New Jersey's at. I have to change my answer. We don't have excess in New Jersey yet. I imagine that's coming soon, y'all. Just like it is with California too. Yeah, no. Adrian's not as confident as I am. I'm confident. It's coming.
I don't trust the DOI.
Yeah, that's all right. I'm good. I'll manifest it through my confidence. So anyway, yes, in those cases, in those 2 states, we can do 2-4 limits on the GL. Anywhere that we offer this excess, which is every other state that we're available in, it's only the 1-2 limits, right? And we would put an excess over top of that if you wanted higher limits. Just know that if you are in one of those states, though, you'll get a couple of other questions with it. If you select 2-4, we need to know why it's required because it's got to go up to accelerant for review. So keep that in mind, but in most cases, we're going to do 1-2 with an excess. Adrian talked a little bit about what we can offer on the excess. We can do 3 mil in-house over our own GL. We can do 1 mil over our liquor. We have options to go over the HNOA, the assault and battery, and employer liability. All of that will be showed at the end of the quote process because basically at that point, it's just going to use all the information that you already put in, and it's just going to ask you what options you want for that. So I'll show you how that shows up here in just a couple minutes. All right. Catering, Adrian answered this earlier. We can do up to 100% catering. We love caterers. Send them our way. Partial catering, up to 100%, not a problem. You're just going to fill out those questions if that's what they do. Probably won't offer HNOA on caterers since most of the time they're going to be doing self-delivery. But you'll see here in a moment, we can offer HNOA as well for non-caterers, obviously. All right, so do they sell alcohol? We have a great liquor liability policy. It is a separate limit outside of our GL. We can do up to 1 mil as evidence down here. And then again, we can offer another 1 mil layer of excess in those states in which it's available. What are their percentage of annual sales? Like I mentioned at the beginning, this is one of the Rainbow's biggest selling points is that we can do up to 65% in alcohol sales, right? So one of those things that's hidden here that we on occasion get questions about is assault and battery, right? Do you offer assault and battery? How do I add it onto the quote? great news, automatically included up to 50% in alcohol sales, right? So if they have 50% in alcohol sales, you're not going to get a single question about it. Assault and battery is included up to the limits, right? Go over 50% and you can add that coverage on. It is not automatically included. However, you can purchase it for the insured up to 1-2 limits, right? So just know that if you're hunting for assault and battery, you can't figure out where it is. Chances are it's probably because your alcohol sales are low enough that we just automatically include it. And you'll see on the quote, once we get to that point as well, that it does show up in the quote too. But if you're looking for it here in this quote flow, that's where it is. It's hidden. We want to make sure that they're doing all the proper serve safe and all that other stuff for liquor liability, but we're a great home for that, assuming that they follow those guidelines. HNOA, like I mentioned, we offer no self-delivery. Like I mentioned for the caterers, obviously that applies to like pizza delivery places too. Still love to write them. We just can't do the HNOA on them, right? Third-party delivery is perfectly fine though, right? No delivery is obviously okay. Robotic delivery, we're not interested in. So if you happen to live in one of the rare places that robotic delivery exists, just know that Rainbow's probably not a home for it.
Jason, I'm going to interrupt you again. We have Tom asking, do you need to see pictures of menu with prices? Generally, no. The answer generally is no. We're not going to require that from you. Now, if it is referred for any reason, or perhaps it's a new venture and gets referred, we're taking a look at it, and there's not a lot of information available online, and we're trying to get a sense of what the risk is, we might ask for it just to get a sense of, hey, does the class code make sense? Do the sales make sense if they're a little bit low or anything like that? But like, it's not an across the board thing. We'll ask you for it if we need it.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. Okay, on to property. We're going to kind of flow right through this. I know that we pushed some questions to talk about this. Any type of construction is potentially eligible for us. We're not going to exclude it just because it's frame. How old it is relevant. However, we can consider older buildings, right? Really what it is that we're looking for is when was the roof last replaced, right? So if this was a little bit older, if this was 2000, we would get that question, right? Because we want to make sure that the roof's been replaced within the last 20 years, right? If it's non-metal. If it's metal, last 30 years is good, right? Obviously, if the building's newer than that, you won't even get the question. Same goes for, and again, you're not getting the questions. I need to leave it on 2000 so we get them and I can show you. And it still doesn't, oh, because it's 25 years. Y'all, look at that. Okay. When was the electrical wiring and the plumbing last updated? I feel like that wasn't always the case. So, y'all, am I crazy right now? Like those used to show up even on my 2000 buildings.
Well,
No.
Past 30 years.
All right. It's because I did a new quote with a different one. All right. Thank you. I am crazy. Apparently. All right. So within the last 25 years, have they updated? Thanks, Shaylee. Have they updated their electrical or their plumbing? That's what it is that we're looking for. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. We'd love to chat with you. Sometimes we can consider some things of like, hey, it's been inspected and we got a report here that shows that everything is perfect. We didn't need to update it. Like those kind of things, reach out to Adrian and his team, have a conversation, and we're happy to chat about them. Right. But if your building is newer than that, you won't even get the questions, apparently. I've worked here for a year and don't even realize that. All right. So fire sprinkler system. You're good to go. Whether they have it or not, obviously that's a rating. It's gonna impact the rating, and it will holistically impact whether or not we'll consider a risk. But even if they don't have a fire sprinkler system, we can still potentially consider them. Occupied by insured BPP. Okay, so we can do up to TIV of 5 mil, right? So that's BPP and building combined, right? If they want to add on the building, you can just put in that limit, and between the two, we can do up to 5 mil per location. Now, Adrian was not, and I appreciate the support, Adrian, because now I'm second guessing everything. But we can potentially consider more with exception through accelerant. So if you've got something that kind of runs on the border of that size, reach out to Adrian and his team, and we can have a chat with that. That being said, if you elect building coverage, you'll get those additional questions about ordinance or law. If they're in a state like Indiana, you may get some mine subsidence questions with coverage, right? So it's really kind of the relevant stuff. If you do not select, then instead, you get tenants improvements and betterments, right? So we don't care whether you class it as BPP or TIB. You're going to get a little bit better rate on tenants insurance and betterments, but you can put it in as either one for us. We do know that certain states require it to be classed certain ways. So that's why we tell you that we're willing to go either way. AOP deductible is pretty straightforward. Winds and hail, I like to take a second to explain. We use third-party data to verify some stuff in our engine. As I've talked about countless times, and you will see proven through working with us, right? Like, we are not data reliant. If something comes in and you feel like it's inaccurate, reach out to us and we will chat. But we do try to make this an easier, more seamless process by supplementing with some of that third-party data. Now, what that means is that we determine some of those wind, hail, those CAT scores ahead of time, right? And this part will already be filled out. Now, you're not seeing that because you're going through one that I already pre-filled, but if it starts out at 1%, you can offer 2% deductible, 5%, or you can remove wind hail altogether, but you cannot go to no separate deductible, right? What that means is that whatever it is preset as, you cannot go lower. So if this had come through and is preset at 5%, you could remove it or leave it at 5%, but you could not offer 2, 1, or no separate deductible, right? You got to reach out to the team, chat that through if that's an issue, but just know that as a general rule, like, we're pretty hard and fast on that. You got to leave it at least what it is that it's set at. If you have any questions about that, please don't hesitate to reach out though. All right, and then the last question on this page is, are they attached to any of the following? Is the building a part of any of this? The real one, these are all rating questions. The real one that might kick you out is if it's attached to HAB. Is that habitational occupied by the owner or the GM of the restaurant? If the answer is yes, we can still consider it. If the answer is no, then we want to know, is there a 2-hour at least firewall between the two? And if the answer to that is yes, then we're good to go. But if the answer is no to both of those, then we're probably not the best fit for the risk, right? Because it's a restaurant, because they have a tendency to have a little bit higher risk of fire. Like, that's why it is that we want to make sure that safety protocol is in place for your attached to HAB structures. Now, please note, we cannot write the building on the HAB, right? We would only be able to write it if it's owned by the restaurant for the portion that the restaurant occupies, right? If you have any questions about that, please reach out. This is predominantly to make sure that even though the HAB is written somewhere else, that those fire safeties are in place. All right, optional coverages. Here's where we start to get to some of the more, unique stuff to Rainbow. I guess a lot of what we talked about is pretty unique sometimes too. We have a Premier package, and everybody does have one of those. That's true. But what's cool about this is that there are a number of customizable things specific to restaurants, right? So whereas you can see this nice little side-by-side of what's primary versus Premier, if you want to customize some outdoor signs, spoilage, tenants liabilities, utility services, time element, wine collection, all these things that are very important to restaurants, and you've got, not every restaurant's going to have a wine collection, but you got one that does, and you want to customize those limits, we make that so that it's available for you, and you can really tailor this product to what your insured needs, right? If you add that on, note that equipment breakdown coverage is automatically included. If you elect to not put on the Premier, you get an additional question that you can buy it back and add it on. Or not, I guess you wouldn't be buying it back. You can add it on. If you put the Premier on, though, it's just automatically included. If you want to customize any of those, that's that last question down here. You select yes, and then you get all the different options of all the different customizable ones. You can select yes, you want to put it on, select the limits, etc. Right, so we're going to leave that at no, but just know that that's where all that's buried. Also, with Cyber and EPLI, we offer some really great coverages there. These are Hartford Steam and Boiler forms that automatically get added to our policies if you elect yes on this, right? And you'll just fill out those questions that are relevant to those particular forms, and we'll get those added on. One of the common things that it is we get asked, particularly with EPLI, is yes, we can do third-party coverage. No, we cannot do wage and hour coverage, right? But like I said, these are HSB forms, so nice and reliable, and great to add on to your restaurant package here. All right. Blanket AIs, add them. We don't charge for them. These are restaurants, they're not contractors, so add them away. If you want to do, if somebody just really wants to see their name in writing, you've got that option to add individual ones as well. Pre-bind, post-bind, there's not a charge for any of these. Put your blankets on every single one of them. You might as well, we don't charge. All right. We have discounts aplenty, right? I'm not going to run through absolutely everything here, but you can see if they're part of an association. Do they maintain a Google business profile? Are they part of a franchise? If that's not enough, here's a bunch of other ones buried. And what's more is that I'll show you some more here toward the end of the quote as well. We're not done with the discounts. We got lots of them. My favorite question in all of this, though, is do you want to refer this to underwriting for additional pricing considerations? The reason that I love this, it has been my unique pleasure to work in insurtechs and startups for a number of years in my career now. And typically, online rating platforms are very inflexible. You can't change them. You get what you get. Either it works for the system or it doesn't, and you've got to take the pricing or you don't. That's not what we do here. We have a team like Adrian who can review and make exceptions to our risks. As you've heard me mention many times, they can review and make exceptions to our pricing. And you've got lots of different ways that you can chat with them, but right here in the quote flow is another opportunity to say like, hey, I need this risk to be at 6,500 because that's what the incumbent is, and we want to win this and bring this insured over to our agency, and we love Rainbow and we want to write it with Rainbow. So you type all that in here. We love Rainbow, and send it on over to Adrian and his team, and we will do our best to hit that pricing that we can for you, okay? So just know that that question is there, so you've got yet another point to reach out, talk to the underwriting team, and really get this custom tailored insurtech approach that is nice and streamlined, but still flexible to meet you and your insured's needs. Like I mentioned, we've got a 60-day window on quote effectiveness. So it won't even let you select beyond that. So just like I said, reach out if you have any questions about it, but you can do up to 60 days out. If you need a back date, you're going to have to reach out to us. We can only do a small number of dates in-house. It's going to have to get underwriting approval and typically a no-known loss letter, but you won't have the ability to backdate yourself here. It won't even let you click the button. Just reach out through chat if you have any questions about that. All right. Payment plans, nice and straightforward. We've got monthly, we've got pay in full for every state except for California, because the California DOI does not allow it. We offer a 5% discount on the pay in full. So whether you choose to pay monthly or pay in full, you elect that here. And then also, we have a brand new feature within it that our entire team is super excited about, because previously you just reached out to us through chat. And you can still do it for old time's sake. We'd love to switch your policy over to ACH for us if you want. Maybe I shouldn't say that while Mickey's listening, but Mickey loves you. She'll do it still. I know she will. Yeah. But you can still reach out to us. Yeah, you can still reach out to us if you needed to switch over. But there's a nice little handy box here that says, hey, I want this to be on ACH, right? And you can always come back to this too once you hit that final page as well. But either way, our policies default to credit card. There's a 2.7% per installment fee if you utilize credit card. So keep in mind, we've also got ACH. You can hop back there and switch to it. The big drawback with ACH, however, is that it takes 3 to 5 business days for those to process, right? So sometimes if you're switching between accounts and doing all kinds of stuff with the billing with ACH, that can cause a little bit of a lag, whereas credit card is near instantaneous. It takes like 10 to 15 minutes. So there's benefits either way, but just know that we've got both of those options available for you. And if you don't elect that here, it may show up that it's in credit card. Just remember that you can go back and you can select that. Oh, it makes me hop back there. You can select that that ACH box here. You can always go back and change it at any time. All right, so we're on to the very end here. Our Rainbow quote is robust, y'all. It's over 30 pages. I've yet to see a carrier MGA quote that is quite as long as ours, but there's a good reason for it, right? So we go over all of the individual coverages and everything that you elected as part of it, right? Because we want to make sure that it's nice and thorough. So this is real tiny. Y'all are just going to have to trust me on this. I'll try to swing in a little bit. Run your first quote and you can see it for yourself. That said, we go over every single coverage that's on it, broken down by property, liability, etc. We talk about what that limit is, what that deductible is or the exposure, and then also the premium associated with it. And we go over everything, right? So this is nice and full for you to be able to check out alongside your insured, lots of pages of it. We go over all the different pricing stuff. We have a list of every single form that's going to be on your policy. And remember to check that, that agent resources page in your login so you can see all those forms too if you want to check them out. We go through the pricing breakdown so you understand how all that works, whether you do pay monthly or pay in full. And this does update based on ACH versus credit card, right? All the different conditions about agreeing to accept electronic payments, recurring payments, all that other stuff. And then a step-by-step process of everything that you filled out as part of this quote too. And the reason that we include all that is so that at the very end, if you choose to do this, you do not need to send this to us. We won't do anything with it. We don't need to collect signatures, but if you want to get a signature from your insured to keep for your own E&O records, you've got a list of absolutely everything that's on this policy, and they've signed off on it, and you've got a nice signed quote in your files, right? So that's why we have a nice big robust one for you there. If you want to share that out with the insured, there's a nice little green button here. What that does is it'll create that login that I mentioned at the very beginning of this webinar for the insured. They can log in, they can download the quote PDF, they can add payment information if you're one of the handful of agencies that doesn't like to collect it, well, as most agents do, but there are some that prefer not to collect payments within their agency. So you can send this out to the insured and they can add the payment in remotely. What that also does is it allows you to put on this Rainbow Rewards and send that to them to upload the photos. So Rainbow Rewards is approximately another 5% as long as credits are still available. You apply the savings and then upload 5 photos from around the restaurant. And you can send that out with that share quote button here as well for the insured to upload those photos, and you get a nice discount again based off of that. Right. So lots of really great ways to add some discounts, whether it's through the pay in full, whether it's, you know, this Rainbow Rewards, whether it's that whole page of them earlier. And then the last thing to show you here is this quote additional coverages for the excess. I promise you that we'd get to this at the very end. Super simple, uses all the information that you've got. So if you're in a state where excess is offered, we just need you to choose like what limits it is that you want, whether you want it to extend over all of these other options. 1 mil over the excess or over the liquor liability is here as well. You send that over to Adrian and his team, and this is an estimation, y'all. Okay, so they'll come back with a flat quote for you. Just know that this is an estimation, but it should generally be around what it is that you can expect to add excess onto. All right, that's it. I'm done with 5 minutes to spare. I think I get sabotaged every week. Naomi and I are in a race, although I'm not sure that we've ever recorded the time once.
I always win. You know, you caught on.
Yeah, I know.
Well,
She does always win, but Mickey sabotages me by asking questions in the middle of it, which I love. I'm grateful that you do.
Questions.
I would rather win by talking to agents than or lose by
Listen,
talking to
the
agents.
agents are in cahoots with me. Okay, don't blame.
So I'm sure that that many of them got answered throughout, either by myself or this amazing team here. We've got a couple of minutes for any other questions, if they're present, or do we get them all?
Crickets.
Guess that means we got them all.
Dang, killed it.
Killed it. Yeah, y'all are dead.
Questions though.
So if it's not abundantly clear, we have fun on these. Y'all, like, there's absolutely no reason for you to come back next week, but come back. Come hang out with us.
Talking about, absolutely there is.
Well, yeah, okay, that's true. Naomi's giving the presentation next week. So if you wanna see a faster time.
I just meant in general, okay? It's like, you know, why not come hang out with us?
Your newer agents with us.
Yeah. We'll go over the same thing. We'd love to see it. And that's why we do this. That's why you see a whole crew here instead of one person just monotone going over everything with you. We love our agents. We have so much fun with y'all. So come back anytime. Reach out to us through that chat feature, email, call. We would love to hear from you. We'd love to chat with you.
And
Anybody
if
else
any
got
of the
anything?
agents on the call has any other producers that weren't able to attend, please reach out. We also love to do these for your agency. So we're happy to do some, you know, agency calls as well, if that's what you prefer
Yeah,
to train.
come back when Naomi does it.
No, I just said they can have their own. Okay, come on now.
I broke you in, bring the rest of the crew in. It's all good.
There you go.
Thanks, everybody. It was a
Thank you
pleasure.
so much.
Have a wonderful rest of your day.